Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, but the result was nil until we let go absolutely. So we must develop new ideas to combat our alcoholism. This is a speaker discussion meeting. Our speaker will share their experience on a topic they have selected from the Big Book or the 12 and 12. Afterward, we will open the meeting for discussion. Please keep sharing to 3 to 5 minutes. Thank you. Tonight, I'd like to introduce Ross. Everybody. Thank you, Ross.
Alcoholic named Ross. We'll do the obligatory. I have a sponsor that knows he's my sponsor. I sponsor guys. I have a home group. I have commitment in a home group. And I've joined a couple other groups that I still like to participate in because someone like me is going to wake up with untreated alcoholism every single day, and I got to plug myself back into this thing. Otherwise, I will drink and die. As for some of the reading that I'd like to look at, we'll just start with what brought me here. It's on page 52. Sure. Almost everyone in here is going to be familiar with where I'm about to pick up and start. Like, a lot of people aren't even going to have to look in the book. So on the second paragraph, we had to ask how or why we shouldn't apply to our human problems the same readiness to change our point of view. We were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were prey to a misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Was not a basic solution of these bedevilants more important than whether we should see newsreels of lunar flight? Of course it was. Now I'm going to go back to the book. But like, for me, my whole life was consumed pretty much with what's this pointing at. I mean, not lunar flight per se. Like, I was raised in a world where like we watched shuttles explode, but like, everything that was put in front of me was more important, and everything that was put in front of me was the next thing that I was going to chase. It was always going to be like that new car, that better job, that beautiful woman. And absolutely, when I couldn't reach those things, when those things didn't fill me, then I reached every single time for another drink or something else to change the way that I feel. I was constantly, looking at these things with the inability to control my emotional nature. I was constantly prey to misery and depression. I could not be of use to other people. And like, that's in my life, like, that's what I prided myself on that thing. It's like, I'm useful to people because like, I will share my money with them. I will share my time with them. I will share anything with them. I'll share half my bag or half my picture with you. It doesn't really matter what it is. I'm always constantly giving of myself. So of course I'm helping other people. But the reality is that, I come to find out that like, this thing is always boomeranging back around on me because I have expectations of what I want from those things. I'm only giving these things away out of my own selfish, self-centered nature to want the next thing that comes from doing that. Just like I want that ease and comfort that comes from picking up that next drink. I want that love that's going to come from taking you on that vacation. I want that appreciation that's going to come from me, picking up that extra couple hours at work for you. Like, I want you, and you're going to make it up on my time, my way. Because if it doesn't make me feel the way that I want to feel, or if you don't pay it back the way that I want to be paid back, I'm always going to just feel more and more empty. Whereas like this program takes me and it says, was not a basic solution to these bedevilments more important? Well, sure it is. So like, what am I actually doing to get rid of these bedevilments? Because like every single time I'm searching for something outside myself, but I'm never actually looking at that solution. And I love someone that comes into the rooms always says, AA was the last thing I tried, but the first thing that worked. And like, I truly believe in that. So going on, when we saw others solve their problems by a simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, we had to stop doubting the power of God. Our ideas did not work, but the God idea did. And I remember the first time that I was introduced to the God idea as being something that was going to solve my problem for me, like being put in front of these steps, I immediately recoiled from it. I immediately was like, just get me out of this room. I'm definitely not going to introduce myself. And then at the end of the day, they kind of did a reverse of what they do in here in that meeting. They had everybody say their names at the end of the meeting, which was really upsetting for me because I was like, why didn't I leave 10 minutes before this thing ended? Because I sure as heck do not want to identify with those people. Like, this is not for me. It says God in those steps. These people are talking about praying is solving their problems. Like, this God had already abandoned me. You know, the God idea wasn't going to work because I wasn't going to let it. Like, that was going to not be, that was not something that I was willing to try. But by the time I came into this thing completely beat down and broken and realizing that everything else that I'd ever tried in life wasn't working, all of a sudden I could recognize that, you know, and I love that this whole book is written by a group of people, the we's and the ours that are in this thing, because like my and I never worked. And I could identify out on a my and I, but it's a lot harder once I start to sink myself into this thing to identify out of the we and the our. Because when I see people that have what I want and it's a group of them, now all of a sudden I'm like, well, the power of Ross is just not even as great as the power of the room, let alone the power of God. So, you know, moving on, the Wright brothers' almost childish faith that they could build a machine which would fly was the mainspring of their accomplishment. Without that, nothing could have happened. So, like, why is that even being brought up to me? Like, why is that idea even being brought up to me? Like, these are the things that I need someone to take me through this literature to understand, because without that, nothing could have happened. But it's like their childish faith that they could build a machine which would fly. So like they had the faith that they could actually do this thing, that they could actually build this machine that would lift up into the air. But like all of the stuff that came after it, all of the, like we don't even think much about the idea that we can click an app and we can have a ticket and we can go across the country outside, you know, outside this whole thing, like all the things that were enabled by their childlike faith that this one thing could work and could get people into the air. Like if the things that opened up after that, like have the faith in this one small thing. So for me, it's like have faith that this prayer is going to help you just a little bit. And then like all the other things that people are promising that are just too big for me to see or contemplate or get into, all those things come into view or come towards my direction later. I don't even have to focus on those because that's always what I'm focused on. Is like I'm focused on like how do I solve a million problems at once rather than like what's the main problem going on with me. And the main problem going on with me is that I don't have faith that God can do anything in my life. I definitely don't have faith that he can take away this obsession that's inside my mind. And at the moment that I give up that mainspring or I get that mainspring idea like, okay, I'm going to trust this God thing, whatever it is, and that starts to make just the smallest move in my life, then everything else starts to open up. Then all of these other avenues start to open up. Then life starts to become this thing that other people are benefiting from, and I don't even see it because I never even expected those things to actually open up for them because all I cared about was this one childlike faith idea in front of me right there. Without that, nothing could have happened. We agnostics and atheists were sticking to the idea that self-sufficiency would solve our problems. When others showed us God's sufficiency worked with them, we began to feel like those who insisted the Wright brothers would never fly. Because that's what was happening for me. Like, I'm the guy who's like, that guy over there that's building that thing, like he's extending those wings out and he's figuring out these breakthroughs on these engines and he's figuring out ways to do all this thing. He's crazy. It'll never work. So there's no reason for me to even give any stock to what he's saying. But then the minute that I watch him take off and I start to see other people years later that they're taking off and they're going across the country, and now all of a sudden I'm this guy who's like, well, I said that wouldn't work. So what's going on with me? What's wrong with me that I can't see how to get to that moment? So logic is great stuff. We liked it. We still like it. It is not by chance that we were given the power to reason, to examine the evidence of our senses, and to draw conclusions. That is man's magnificent attributes. We, agnostically inclined, would not feel satisfied with the proposal which did not lend itself to a reasonable approach and interpretation. Hence, we are at pains to tell why we think our present faith is reasonable, why we think it is more sane and logical to believe than not to believe, why we say our former thinking was soft and mushy when we threw up our hands in doubt and said, we don't know. And that was me too, because the reality is I didn't fight to say there was no God. I waited for you guys to present your God to me so I could tell you that your God wasn't real. I wasn't going to sit around and try to explain to you what my God looked like, because there was no my God for me. I didn't have a God. I didn't have any conception of what God was. I just knew whatever you thought God was wrong. I knew whatever God was doing in your life, I could attribute to something else. I would walk away from conversations with people that just had firm belief in a higher power, and especially early in these rooms of these people that would come to me and talk to me about this God keeping them sober, and I'm like, there's no shot. Like, that guy stays sober because all he does is go to treatment centers. That guy stays sober because he spends his whole day at that meeting place. That guy stays sober because he works at this facility and he doesn't want to lose his job, or he lives in that sober house, so he's afraid of testing positive. He doesn't stay sober and smiling and happy and productive and useful and connected. Oh, wow. Look at all those things that I just named that I'm denying that this God is doing for him. And I'm immediately like, my idea of God was so insufficient and mushy and subject to change, because it was going to come down to what you told me your God looked like. Like, logic was always something that I thought was going to win out. Meanwhile, I was constantly changing my thoughts and my logic to make sure that I could knock down anything that was working for other people, especially when it worked for other people, because I didn't want to put in the work to know this God and develop this relationship with God, to try to understand like what power it would actually give to me. And when we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, we could not postpone or evade. We had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be? Now, I have battled that paragraph a million times, not just in the last year that I've been able to stay sober, but like my whole life. Because I wanted to point at like all the ugly trees all the time. Like, I always wanted to point at the ugly trees, like God. And so like that was how I could say like, well, if God's everything, then God is what happened to that little child over there, or God's the thing that took away my family member, or is keeping my cousin struggling, or whatever those things are. I'm always pointing at all the bad things, and I'm never once giving credit to God for all the beautiful things, and I'm never at all thinking about the idea of the choices that I'm making and the way I'm reacting to everything in life is actually the part that's keeping me separated, and fearlessly facing the proposition that God is everything or else he is nothing. So like, for me, and today, and I mean, this could, like I said, this always evolves and changes, especially when I hear other people that have, really good concepts that come through these rooms. Like, sadly for you guys, you got to listen to me. But like, for me, like, when I don't have God, I have nothing. My whole life is empty. I am nothing when I have no God in me. But the minute that I, like, every little ounce of God that I let work through me are those moments that I get everything. Those are the moments that I get the peace and serenity that this program promises. Those are the moments that I'm not fearful of people or of economic insecurity anymore. Those are the moments, like, I had a moment this morning when I woke up and I looked at the date on something that I realized I've missed it, and I was supposed to pay it, but already, and it's like, how's this all going to work out now that I didn't pay that on time? And like, and I'm just immediately going all into all this stuff, and it's like, okay, like, what? And so like now I'm sitting down my defects list again, pointing at all of it, of like, like, look at you, like this is you all over again. Like, you're doing the same thing. You're procrastinating, you're ignoring, you're doing all these things, you're justifying. Like, in my mind, I'm already ready to get on the phone and be like, well, I know it said I was supposed to pay it at 30 days after it, but like, this is when I was ready to pay it. It's like, well, they don't care that stuff. Like, that's my psychotic mind that's like telling me like they're gonna, like, well, I'm prepared now, I wasn't prepared then. And like, they're like, well, it says it when it was due. And like, that's the way I am every single time. Like, I will be crushed by this crisis, and it's like the only thing that was able to settle me down was when I like actually went down, sat down, and started to just do my best to just literally do the set aside prayer. Like, I changed a couple of the words of what I was trying to set aside, but like, I was setting things aside in my life that I need to be like, okay, like, let me see where you're at in this thing, and let me forget all of the, because I want to go right at, I want to attack problems, but like, everything or nothing, those moments. And then the moment that I felt a little bit of God, like a little bit of surrender and a little bit of God back in me, all of a sudden peace was in my life. I was able to pick up that phone. I was able to go get that thing taken care of and paid, like all, and like actually be useful again, and not be sitting at my house thinking of like, who am I going to call to try to justify all these things? I've got people I got to explain to. Let me get the story. Let me get that story already going of what these people, how these people are wrong that I missed a date, like these, and like, because they're on separate sheets of paper, why is the due date on a separate sheet of paper? Like, that doesn't even make sense, like and that's just me. Like, I am nothing the minute that I close God out, and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to do this thing anymore, So arrived at this point, we were squarely confronted with the question of faith. And the word faith, like, I know they got a big book dictionary and stuff like that. And like, you'll hear people that'll tell you what the word faith is. But luckily for me, in the first 164 pages, they don't sit down and define exactly what faith is. I mean, they tell me how to kind of get there. They tell me the how and the why of it, but they don't say this is what faith is. And if you're not doing faith this way, then you're not doing faith right. And that's important to me because, like, my whole life I've been walking in the fog, and like I might see like a flashing light out that way that looks good, so I start walking towards it, or I'm still in this fog, but I'm walking towards it. And sometimes that light is, something that it's worth walking towards. And sometimes when I get there, it's just a complete disappointment. Or I'll hear like some beautiful laughing or conversations over in the fog. And so I move over, and sometimes those people are worth talking to and laughing with. And sometimes those people are dangerous, and I'm going to get myself in all kinds of trouble now that I'm standing there. But like, when I get to this program, it gives me this compass, and it tells me, like, faith to me right now is this compass that's in my hand that this program gives me that says, like, you're in the fog, you have this compass, follow the compass, trust the compass. Sometimes I'm going to walk the wrong way. Sometimes I'm going to walk up on something that I don't know how to deal with, and I'm not going to trust that compass, and I'm going to step out the wrong way. That's okay. The minute that you start pointing yourself back at that compass and walking through that fog, that things are going to keep improving. It's going to get you out of this fog that you're stuck in, this mess that you're walking through. It might even surround you the rest of your life, but if you keep putting trust in it, you're going to keep moving in the right direction. And like, so far, I've found that to be so very much the case. I mean, like I said, I still walk up on some voices that I feel like lead me astray at times. I still get inside my own head. I still want to choose my own directions. Like, there's no level of perfection inside this body. But like, the everything or nothing part comes back into play. Like, that moment when I squarely confront the question of faith, and I'm like, well, what is it and how do I do it? And this book walks me through that. Like, this is the how and why of it. We had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Like, I am constantly playing God, and that does not work every single time that I choose. And I don't even know what playing God means sometimes, because like I said, sometimes, maybe kind, virtuous, like I'll do that stuff. Like, I'll look at what, like, my sponsor, I'll say, well, what is God's will? And my sponsor, it's like, honesty, purity, selflessness, and love. And I'm like, and he's like, so like every decision you make, if it's got all four of those points in it, you're doing God's will. Like, and so like I start to look at those decisions I make, and I'm like, all four? I got to do all four? Like all four, it's got to be all four. Like, I can't just like leave the selflessness part out this time. I mean, I can't just do it because I love this person. You know what I mean? Like, I love this person, so I can do that, right? Like, I could do that because I'm doing it out of love. And it's like, yeah, but like, how much purity is behind that love, Ross? You know what I mean? It's all of a sudden where I have to examine it, and I have to start to look at that thing of like, oh man, like God's will for me has these things in it. And I don't know how to even live inside that all the time. But I also don't want to be stuck in paralysis, Like, I get a phone call in the middle, I get the phone call in the middle of the afternoon the other day that says like, hey, like, can you come do this thing tonight? And I'm like, yes, I can do that thing tonight, like, and then I examine that, and I'm like, well, I definitely had plans to do something else. So there goes the selfless parts built into that, like, it's a pure idea because I'm definitely trying to help somebody else. It's loving because, like, well, I love the people that I'm going with, and I'm really hoping that the people that, I tell everyone at the end of every series, I love you all and there's nothing you can do about it. And I try to live up to that. Because the reality is, it's kind of what Ron said to me before this. You're all judging me. That's the way I feel all the time, Like, I always feel like you guys are judging me. And so, like, what's my first reaction to that? I'm going to judge you instead. Like, I'm going to make sure that, like, I'm like, well, like, Casey's got his elbow up. He, that guy over there's not looking. He must not be listening. Like, she's like, I'm doing this thing better than him. Yes. Like that, but the reality, like, got your phone out? Ha, well, mine's face down. Like, that's just the way, like, that's the way that I am all the time. Like, that is that, but if I'm fighting myself out of that stuff, if I'm getting myself away from that, you know what I mean? Like, and, as it moves on, like without knowing it, had we not been brought to where we stood by a certain kind of faith. So, like, that was the part that I hadn't realized my whole life, is that I was always walking towards faith anyways. It was just faith in all the wrong things. I had faith that if I did something for somebody else, that I was going to get something back. I had faith that if I earned enough money, you guys were going to think I was a success. That like, everything in my life was this level of faith that I was putting into this meat world and my own mind. And, like, never once was I able to understand that, like, I had no faith in the things that were actually going to take me into any level of success. So I'm going to turn over to 54, and at the bottom of the second paragraph where it says, it was impossible to say we had no capacity for faith or love or worship. In one form or another, we had been living by faith and little else. And that kind of goes to what I was just saying. Like, my whole life, I've been living by faith, but little else. It was faith in the woman that I was marrying. It was faith in the advice I got from my dad, and like whatever it is. Like, I'm always putting myself into it, but like, it was so small. It was little else. That part that was broken in me, imagine life without faith, where nothing left but pure reason. It wouldn't be life. And see, the faith that I was always putting into was pure reason. And there was no life for me in it. Like, and there, like that, like, I couldn't understand that. Cause like I said, like, I looked happy in the photos, guys. Like, my Facebook is ripped down where you guys can't see it now, but like, if I were to put it back up, you would see happy photos. You would only see me smiling. You would see me out with Cub Scout leadership and coaching flag football and basketball teams, a decade ago, taking my daughter through golf lessons. And up to the point of like standing next to her at USF, like with my arm around her as she's joining the USF golf team. My life looked great on Facebook, but my mind was destroyed. And what you don't see is that, like, as soon as we took that photo at the Cub Scouts thing and all the kids were in the tent, I'm sneaking off into the woods. You know what I mean? Like, I am coming back spinning out in the tent, wondering, like literally, like, wondering if people can hear me, like, miserable in the tent. And one day, I was sitting out with someone, and the person came over, and they were like, one of the other leaders came over, and they're like, there's a dad here that's, like, been drunk all weekend. And I was like, oh, because I knew, like, I had been. And they were just kept going on about all these things that this dad had done. And then finally, she, like, after like 10 minutes of her, like, talking, she looks and she's like, there he is. And, like, that was me. Like, everything she had listed was me the whole way through. And you know what I was? Everything's perfect. Like, everything's perfect in my whole life. Like, I got away with it. Like, look at that drunk over there. What an asshole. Like, that is how I looked at life, is like, he failed. He's got the problem. We should probably figure out somewhere to take him. Like that's how I looked at life, is like, that guy's got the problem because, the people around, they're coming over to tell me about that guy over there. So, like, I must be doing it right. And, like, my whole life was completely broken and empty. Like, there was the faith that I was putting in. And so, like, what does this program take me to? And, like, I know we don't, like, this isn't for me only thing. right? Like I can't speak to like other people, how other people connect to their higher power, or how you develop your relationship with God. But like where it says here, no capacity for faith or love or worship. So the first time that I came to AA, before, like I said, I immediately recoiled at what was on the wall. I like refused the idea that I was gonna submit to a God. But people kept saying this prayer thing. And then finally, like, I was like, well, I'm not talking to whatever that God thing is, because it doesn't love us. Like, I looked at God as like this kid with an ant farm. He didn't care about it. It was, he made it, sure, like something bigger than us created it all, but it's a kid with an ant farm. He doesn't care about it. Just like the kid doesn't love those ants individually, he just has an ant farm. And like, he'll leave the room and not even watch it, not even care about it. And so like, but what did love me that wasn't around? So I started talking to my deceased wife, and I was like, I knew she wanted what was best for me, because I knew that I was falling apart and I was no longer even close to being able to be the man that she had married and that she had raised children with. And now I'm the only one raising these kids. And as I developed that, I realized I was getting relief from reviewing my day before I went to bed with her. And so like I started wanting to do that thing in the morning. And so I started talking to her about my mornings too. And then when I was getting angry in the middle of the afternoon, then time develops and I'm getting angry in the middle of the afternoon, and I'm like slowing down by like talking to her about it. But there just came a point where like I was about to graduate my program, you know, therapists say that I'm good to go. Like nutritionist says that I'm back on weight. Like sleep specialist says that you're getting the right sleep scores again. You know, like sure, they want me to like take this like PHP program afterwards, but I'm basically like healed now, according to all these people that have been, you know. But I knew that wasn't enough. And I knew that whatever was keeping me sober inside that facility was not going to be there when I walked out the door. There was no longer going to be no hallways with alcohol. There was no longer going to be no cell phone in my pocket for me to be able to just call whoever I wanted, for whoever to call me. There was no, those lonely moments. I wasn't going to be locked into a space where like when I stood up, I would walk out and there would be like, you know, staff there to like keep my mind occupied. Like all that stuff was going to go away. And so I went out to a river to go talk to my wife. I'm like, man, I only got this little bit of time left. And I could tell she couldn't feel me. And so like I started talking to the real God, but I was really angry. Like I could tell that like something's blocking me from being able to talk to this thing. Like the spirit of my wife was unable to hear me. I could just tell. So I cussed God out for a long period of time. And then I, for lack of a better description, you know, and it sounds as selfish as it sounds now, because trust me, it didn't keep me sober anyways. I want to go back out. But like, I made a deal that I would work these steps and that I would do my best to work these steps, that I would put myself in a position to be able to help other people if you would just show me that you love me. Because if you show me you love me, then I know you love everybody. And I was given what I needed in that moment to be able to take that faith and go to it. So like, you know, I had at that point, you know, now I have a capacity for faith. And then once I have the faith part and I know that God loves me, well, now I understand that it's like my job to love all the people around me. So I've got the love part, you know, but the or worship part was not part of my plan. Like God came to me when I was all alone out on a river, so nobody needed to tell me that I needed to worship that thing. Like I didn't even know how to worship that thing. That wasn't part of my play. My play was talk to my wife, talk to my creator, talk to another alcoholic. And that did me right for a while. I spent, you know, many months where that was working fine. But then there came a point where I was going to bed all over again, feeling terrible about my life, and ended up back out there. And when I went back out there, now I got this literature in my head, and I would like read this book to people. I would read this book to people while I was loaded. Like anonymity, guys. Red room over there on 54. I have sat in there and read this book with the manager. Manager loves me. I walk in that place, he immediately takes me to the back and we sit and we talk. Like we're good buddies. We've known each other for many, 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 many years. And like He's read this book with me, and he's asked me, like, so are you going to get back to where you were? Because he's seen me. He won't serve me now. Like, he would never serve, he will not serve me at this point, because he's like, you were broken, then you were fixed, then you were broken again, and it was worse. And when it was worse, I couldn't get away from this literature, but like the part that I realized when I came back this time, it's like, I could not feel God anymore. That's what I kept telling him. It's like, I just can't feel God. And so I don't even want to stop, because like, I can't feel God anymore. So when I finally did come back to the rooms and I started to understand at a much more core level that that's what that third prong of, like mental, physical, and spiritual, as soon as I get loaded, I have blocked it. And it's not just blocked for like a little bit. It's blocked until I actually surrender that obsession back to God all over again. Like it took me months to be able to feel like prayer was working again when I came back this time. And, but then the moment that happened, I was like, well, it says that, my job is to grow in effectiveness and understanding. Well, like, I understand that last time I didn't actually like focus on trying to know this God and know what comes next for me. And so what the big part, and like I said, I cannot speak to where anyone else is in their journey or what it means. But like, that is a core word for me that's in there, right there, for faith or love or worship. That I actually have to worship this creator. I actually have to know that this creator is worth loving, worth talking about to other people, and worth developing and understanding and seeing when other people talk about their God now. Like, even though I might have a conception, I try to set that aside. And I try to see that that's how God's speaking to that person, through that person, to me in every bit. And then what do I take from that so that I can take that into my worship? Because the or worship part has been the big key for me this time. Like, I need to know that this higher power thing has a plan for me, for you, and even for the guy that's going to go out tonight and going to get loaded. Like, he's got a plan for them too. And it's not my job to do anything except for seek God's will. Those 4 tenets, like I said, I won't review them all over again. I'm going to try to open it up for you guys so you guys can talk about something else other than Ross. But the reality is that, imagine life without faith, where nothing left but pure reason, it wouldn't be life. And that is how I have to carry myself every single day. And thank God for this big book, and thank God for the men and the women that have brought me the messages that are inside it and continue to help develop those things for me, because this literature saved my life. And I love you all, and there's nothing you can do about it.